On an adrenaline-fueled afternoon, a gang of bikers attacks a millionaire farmer, unaware that their target boasts an astonishing connection, an unbreakable friendship with Keanu Reeves, poised to turn the conflict into an unforgettable twist. The storm had finally broken, leaving the air electric with possibility and dread. Emma stood at the edge of Fazenda Esperanza's weathered porch, watching lightning flash across the distant mountains. Behind her, in the old farmhouse that had once vibrated with family gatherings, her father Robert paced anxiously, his phone pressed to his ear. "They've found us again," he said, ending the call and turning to face his daughter. At 55, Robert Wilson's once commanding presence had diminished, but his eyes still flashed with the same intensity that had built his business empire. "We need to move. Tonight." "No," Emma replied, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her. At 23, she had spent the last 3 months in this remote sanctuary, and she was tired of running. "I'm done hiding." The motorcycle's distant growl cut through the night before Robert could respond. They both tensed, eyes straining against the darkness as a single headlight curved up the long driveway. This was different from the usual scout bikes that had been circling the property. This one came directly, purposefully. "Get inside," Robert ordered, reaching for the shotgun he kept by the door. Emma remained frozen, watching as the rider dismounted, tall with shoulder-length dark hair and an unmistakable profile even in the dim light. "Wait," she whispered, disbelief coloring her voice. "That's Keanu Reeves," the man confirmed, removing his helmet and approaching with cautious steps. "And you're in danger, both of you." Robert's grip on the shotgun tightened. "How did you find this place? What do you want?" Keanu's penetrating gaze moved between them, then toward the tree line where, now that Emma looked carefully, shadows seemed to move with unnatural purpose. "Explanations later," he said, his voice remarkably calm. "Right now you need to trust me, they're already here." 3 months earlier, Robert Wilson had been at the pinnacle of his career. His technology security firm protected the digital assets of Fortune 500 companies. His name was synonymous with integrity, and his future seemed secure, until the night he received the encrypted files that changed everything. The message had come from Marcus Rivera, an ex-cop who had been Robert's head of physical security for 15 years. The subject line was simple: "They killed Tyler. You're next." Tyler Mendez had been Robert's business partner since college, a brilliant cryptographer who had designed the algorithmic backbone of their security systems. His death had been reported as a boating accident, tragic but not suspicious. Until Marcos started digging. What he uncovered was a conspiracy that stretched back decades, involving stolen technology, government contracts, and a shadow organization that operated at the intersection of private enterprise and state intelligence. An organization that had been using Wilson Securities' encryptions to hide their activities that included assassination, blackmail, and the systematic elimination of anyone who threatened to expose them. The files contained proof that would dismantle the organization, but releasing them would also reveal that Wilson Securities' systems, trusted by banks, defense contractors, and government agencies, had been compromised for years. The fallout would destroy not just Robert's company, but potentially the entire financial infrastructure it supported. With Tyler dead, and Marcus warning that assassins had been dispatched, Robert had made a split-second decision. He'd transferred the encrypted files to a secure device, withdrawn cash from multiple accounts, and disappeared with his daughter Emma, whose technical expertise would be crucial in verifying and potentially releasing the information. Their journey had led them through safe houses and temporary shelters until they arrived at Fazenda Esperanza, Hope Farm, a remote property that had belonged to Robert's grandfather, a visionary banker who had used his position during the political upheavals of the 1960s to help persecuted families protect their assets and preserve crucial historical records. The farm had been abandoned for decades, but its isolation made it perfect, or so they had thought. Within weeks, strangers began appearing in the nearby town, asking questions. Then came the motorcycles, circling ever closer, and the encrypted messages sent to Emma's carefully anonymized email. "We know where you are. We know what you have. Time is running out. Marcus had joined them a month into their stay, bringing news that the organization was closing in. With him came Nathan Carter, a young, taciturn caretaker who knew every inch of the property and whose skills with engines and improvised security measures quickly proved invaluable. Together, the four of them had turned the farmhouse into a fortress while they worked to decrypt the final layers of Tyler's files, layers that supposedly contained not just evidence of crimes, but the identities of everyone involved in the conspiracy, from field operatives to the highest levels of corporate and political power. What none of them had expected was the arrival of Keanu Reeves, whose presence at Fazenda Esperanza would prove to be either their salvation or the catalyst for their destruction. "How can we possibly trust you?" Emma demanded, standing in the farmhouse kitchen as Keanu helped Nathan and Marcus secure the doors and windows. "You show up out of nowhere, the night they find us?" "I understand your suspicion," Keanu replied, his movements efficient and practiced, as he checked sightlines through the windows. "But I'm not with them." "Then explain how you knew where to find us," Robert insisted, the shotgun still within reach. Keanu paused, his expression unreadable in the dim light. "I've been tracking this organization for years. They killed someone I cared about, Maid. It looked like an overdose. And you just happened to show up tonight?" Marcus asked, his ex-cop instincts clearly on high alert. "Not exactly." Keanu moved to the dining table where maps of the property were spread out. "I intercepted communications about a planned raid. Tonight, a team of 6, heavily armed, with orders to retrieve the files and eliminate witnesses." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. "Why would they send someone like you?" Emma pressed, still unconvinced. "You're not exactly inconspicuous." A ghost of a smile crossed Keanu's face. "I'm not with them. I've been working with a network of people who've been affected by this organization. Families of victims, whistleblowers, journalists. We've been building a case for years, but we've never had the concrete evidence we needed. Until now." Hita turned to Robert. "Tyler Mendez contacted our network 3 days before he was killed. He said he had proof that could bring down the entire operation, but he needed to verify something first. Something about a protocol from the 1960s. Robert's face paled. "Phoenix Protocol." "What's that?" Nathan asked, speaking for the first time since Keanu's arrival. "Not what who?" Robert replied, moving to an old painting that hung on the kitchen wall. He removed it, revealing a small safe. "Phoenix was my grandfather's code name during Operation Safeguard. He used his position as a banker to create a network that protected families and preserved historical records during political upheavals." As Robert worked the combination lock, Emma watched Keanu. There was something in his focused intensity that reminded her of the characters he played in his films, a sense of purpose that transcended ordinary motivation. But this wasn't a movie, and their lives weren't following a script with a guaranteed happy ending. The safe opened with a soft click, revealing a leather-bound journal and a small metal key. "My grandfather's legacy," Robert explained carefully, removing the journal. "A network that spans continents, designed to activate in times of crisis to protect truth and justice when conventional systems fail." "And Tyler found out about it?" Marcus asked. "Not exactly. He found references to it in encrypted communications between members of the organization. They've been hunting for it for decades, a system that operates completely outside their control, that could expose and dismantle their entire operation." Keanu stepped forward, his gaze fixed on the journal. "That's why I'm here, not just to warn you about tonight's raid, but because the network I've been working with, it's an offshoot of Phoenix. We've been operating in the shadows, gathering evidence, protecting witnesses, but we've never had the full picture." "And we're supposed to just believe this?" Emma challenged. Keanu reached into his jacket and removed a worn leather wallet. From it, he extracted a small photograph and handed it to Robert. "Your grandfather, Santiago Wilson, Istanbul, 1972, with my father." Robert stared at the image, shock evident on his face. "This is real," he whispered, passing the photo to Emma. The yellowed photograph showed two men standing before an ornate doorway, one unmistakably a younger version of the grandfather she had never met. "My father was a historian," Keanu explained. "He worked with Phoenix to preserve documents that powerful people wanted destroyed. When I was 12, he was killed for it, made to look like an accident." The distant sound of engines cut through the moment, multiple vehicles approaching from different directions. "They're here," Nathan said, moving to the window. "At least 4 vehicles, maybe 20 minutes out." "We need to activate the protocol," Robert decided, turning to Keanu. "If what you're saying is true, you're the missing piece we've been waiting for." "What does that mean?" Emma asked, fear and curiosity battling within her. "It means," Keanu answered, his eyes meeting hers with unexpected warmth, "that we're about to wake a sleeping giant." So the next 6 hours unfolded like a fever dream. As their attackers closed in, Robert led them to the old barn, where, hidden beneath decades of dust and farm equipment, they discovered the entrance to a network of tunnels, part of the original Phoenix infrastructure, designed to hide people and information in times of crisis. The tunnels led to an underground room equipped with technology, both ancient and surprisingly modern. Here, Robert and Emma worked feverishly to combine Tyler's encrypted files with the activation codes from Santiago's journal, while Keanu, Marcus, and Nathan created diversions above ground, leading the attackers on a complex chase through the property. "This is incredible," Emma murmured as the system came online, displaying a global network of secure servers and communication channels. "It's been waiting all this time, maintained by people who believed in your grandfather's vision." "Phoenix rises from the ashes," Robert replied, his fingers flying across the keyboard. "The protocol was designed to activate only when specific. Threats were detected and verified by trusted sources. Once activated, it can't be stopped. The information will be released through hundreds of independent channels, verified by historical records that have been protected for decades." "But what about the financial collapse you were worried about?" Emma asked, the weight of consequence heavy in her voice. "If this reveals that Wilson's security was compromised..." "The protocol includes safeguards," Robert explained, his expression both pained and resolved. "Emergency patches for critical systems, transition plans for affected institutions. There will be damage, but not catastrophic failure. Your grandfather understood that sometimes healing requires pain." Above them, gunfire erupted, followed by the sound of breaking glass. "We need to hurry," Emma urged, fear for their companions tightening her chest. Just as they completed the final sequence, the door to their sanctuary burst open. Keanu stood there, blood streaming from a cut on his forehead, supporting Nathan, who appeared to have been shot in the leg. "Marcus?" Robert asked, rising to help them. "Holding them off at the north tunnel," Keanu replied, helping Nathan to a chair. "But we don't have much time. Is it done?" Emma nodded, watching as confirmation messages began appearing on the screen. "Phoenix is awake. The files are being verified and distributed." A strange calm settled over the room despite the chaos above. They had done it, set in motion a process that would expose decades of corruption and violence, that would bring justice for Tyler, for Keanu's father, and for countless others whose lives had been destroyed by people who operated above the law. "What now?" Nathan asked through gritted teeth as Emma bandaged his leg. "Now," Keanu said, checking his weapon, "we survive the night." The final confrontation came at dawn, as the first data packages from Phoenix began reaching their destinations across the globe. The organization, realizing what was happening, launched a desperate final assault on the farmhouse. Led by Victor Drayson, a former security officer who had once worked for Robert before selling his loyalty to the organization, the attackers breached the main house, forcing the group to make their stand in the old family library, a room that, unknown to the attackers, contained yet another of Santiago's secrets. "You've lost, Robert," Victor called, his voice echoing through the bullet-riddled hallway. "Even if your little Phoenix flies, we control enough media outlets and politicians to discredit everything. It will be dismissed as conspiracy theories and fake news." Robert exchanged glances with Keanu, who nodded almost imperceptibly. "Maybe once," Robert replied, loud enough for Victor to hear. "But times have changed. People are hungry for truth, and Phoenix isn't just releasing data. It's connecting directly with the families of victims, with journalists who've been investigating pieces of this for years, with prosecutors who've been building cases in secret. A bitter laugh was Victor's only response, followed by the sound of his team moving into position for a final assault. "Now," Keanu whispered. Emma pressed a hidden panel in the fireplace mantel, revealing a small chamber containing a single red button. Santiago's final failsafe, a security system built into the very walls of the house, designed to incapacitate intruders without causing permanent harm. The lights flickered as the system activated. A high-pitched tone, just at the edge of human hearing, filled the air, followed by a fine mist that descended from hidden vents in the ceiling. Within minutes, the sounds of confusion and collapse came from the hallway as Victor and his team succumbed to the non-lethal but highly effective knockout gas. When law enforcement finally arrived, summoned by automated alerts from the Phoenix Protocol, they found Robert, Emma, Marcus, Nathan, and Keanu waiting calmly on the porch of Fazenda Esperanza, with Victor and his team secured and unconscious in the library. And across the world, the truth began to spread, unstoppable as daybreak. 6 months later, Emma stood once again on the porch of Fazenda Esperanza, watching as a convoy of vehicles wound their way up the driveway. Unlike the night of the attack, these visitors were expected: historians, journalists, and family members of those who had been protected by Phoenix decades ago, all coming to participate in the farm's transformation into a center for truth and memory. "Nervous?" asked a familiar voice behind her. Emma turned to find Keanu looking more relaxed than she had ever seen him. In the months since that night, he had become an unexpected constant in their lives, helping to navigate the storm of publicity, testifying before congressional committees, and using his public platform to ensure the Phoenix revelations couldn't be buried or dismissed. "A little," she admitted. "It's all happening so fast." "Your grandfather would be proud," Keanu said, coming to stand beside her at the railing. "Not just of the center, but of you, of how you've handled everything." Emma smiled, thinking of the journey from that terrifying night to this moment of possibility. The investigations were ongoing, the full extent of the organization's reach still being mapped, but already dozens of arrests had been made and institutions were being reformed from within. Robert emerged from the house, accompanied by Marcus and Nathan, the latter still walking with a slight limp from his injury. Together they watched as the first car reached the end of the driveway. "I never thought I'd see this place full of life again," Robert said softly. "When we first came here, it was just a hiding place." "Now it's something more," Marcus observed. "A beacon." As Emma moved to greet their guests, she felt a profound sense of transformation, not just of the farm or of the world that the Phoenix revelations had begun to reshape, but of herself. 6 months ago, she had been defined by fear and flight, by the shadow of secrets too dangerous to reveal. Now standing in the morning light of Fazenda Esperanza, the farm of hope, she had found her purpose in continuing Santiago's legacy, in standing as a guardian of truth in a world that desperately needed it. Behind her, Keanu watched with quiet satisfaction. His journey had brought him to this place by chance, a detour on a motorcycle trip meant to clear his head after finishing a film. But sometimes, he reflected, the most important journeys weren't those we planned, but those that found us when we least expected them. As Emma welcomed the first visitors, her face alight with purpose and possibility, Keanu knew that the Phoenix had truly risen, not just as a protocol or a network, but as a living ideal, embodied in the courage of ordinary people who refuse to let the darkness win. In the heart of Fazenda Esperanza, hope had found its sanctuary.